Florence Scovel Shinn believed that money not staying with certain people is never about the money itself, but about the underlying spiritual laws, mental patterns, emotional habits, and subconscious agreements that govern a person's relationship with supply, abundance, and circulation. For in Shinn's philosophy, money is not merely currency, but energy, a symbol of faith, belief, and alignment with divine law, and whenever it refuses to remain with someone, it is often because that person is unconsciously violating the laws of non-resistance, praise, circulation, and expectancy that allow supply to flow, grow, and stay. Shinn would say that money flees those who criticize it, fear it, condemn it, resent those who have it, or treat it as a master rather than a servant, because such attitudes create energetic walls and spiritual debts that block circulation and invite loss. For example, when a person constantly says, "I never have enough," "money slips through my fingers," or "rich people are greedy," the subconscious mind interprets those statements as commands and makes them true by reducing opportunities, creating delays, attracting unexpected expenses, or sabotaging potential gains. And in this way, money behaves as if it has no desire to settle, since it cannot take root in soil poisoned by bitterness, fear, or judgment. Shinn also taught that certain people unconsciously pay for their mistakes with financial loss, because the subconscious believes in punishment, unworthiness, or karmic debt, so such individuals might finally receive money only to lose it again through illness, accidents, broken devices, emergencies, or poor decisions, not because God desires their suffering, but because their inner law expects loss as a balancing mechanism, and until they forgive themselves, clear guilt, and accept that divine supply does not require struggle, money cannot stay. Another reason money escapes someone's life, according to Shinn, is that they do not possess what she called a prosperous consciousness, meaning they think and speak in the terms of lack rather than plenty. They fear spending rather than bless circulation. They hoard rather than steward, or they worship security rather than trust the divine. And money senses this fear, for fear causes stagnation, and stagnation violates law, and anything that violates spiritual law dissolves. Therefore, the money dissolves. Shinn emphasized that money must circulate the way blood must circulate. Block either and the body dies. Block money and supply dies. So people who cling, panic, or refuse to give even when guided by intuition end up creating scarcity. For holding too tightly from fear is the same as declaring to the universe, "I have nothing coming," and the universe obeys. Conversely, Shinn taught that praise magnetizes supply, for whatever you praise increases. So when one blesses bills, blesses money, blesses other people's wealth, and blesses even small income, they invite multiplication. But when one curses bills, resents payments, envies wealth, or despises the rich, they send away good, because the law cannot give what the heart rejects. Therefore, money does not stay with those whose inner speech is negative, bitter, or self-sabotaging. Statements like, "I don't deserve nice things," "I'd rather be poor than greedy," or "money always leaves," become prophecies, and the subconscious mind, which Shinn saw as the creative medium between spirit and form, fulfills those prophecies with mathematical precision. In addition, Shinn taught that money avoids those who refuse divine guidance, for when people ignore intuition, such as refusing to invest when guided, refusing to save when guided, refusing to charge fair prices when guided, or refusing to walk away from dishonest opportunities, they break alignment, and misalignment leads to loss. She also pointed out that some people cannot keep money because their identity is built around struggle, and the moment abundance arrives, it threatens the story they live in, so they unconsciously get rid of it to restore familiarity, for the subconscious would rather maintain a miserable identity than face the unknown of prosperity. Others lose money because they seek approval instead of alignment, therefore they overspend to impress, undercharge to be liked, lend to avoid discomfort, or bail out others from savior complex behavior, and money cannot stay with someone who constantly sacrifices it for emotional validation. Shinn also explained that gossip, criticism, and jealousy create spiritual debt, because what you take from others with your tongue will be taken from you with your purse. So if someone constantly attacks the wealthy, mocks success, or undermines others' prosperity, they create a vibrational contract that pushes prosperity away from themselves, for one cannot possess what they energetically attack. Moreover, she stressed the importance of divine order in finances, meaning that money stays where structure, integrity, honesty, and clarity exist, but flees chaos, disorder, dishonesty, and negligence, because the divine cannot bless confusion. So someone who refuses to track expenses, ignores bills, hides income, underprices their work, or participates in unethical dealings will see money behave erratically. For Shinn insisted that money is a spiritual trust, and trust cannot stay where stewardship does not exist. She further explained that poverty-conscious individuals often make money their god by obsessing over it, working for it without joy or worrying about it excessively. But ironically, money avoids worshippers, for it was meant to be a servant, not an idol. So when someone worships money from fear, they repel it, but when they serve their purpose and trust divine supply, money follows. Shinn also highlighted that money cannot remain with those who do not understand the law of substitution, meaning you cannot hold negative thoughts about wealth and expect positive outcomes. You cannot hate the wealthy and expect wealth. You cannot speak lack and receive plenty. So developing a prosperous consciousness requires dissolving resentment, healing fear, and practicing praise, faith, non-resistance, and forgiveness. For forgiveness is key because unhealed resentment blocks supply, and Shinn repeatedly wrote that resentment is the great financial disintegrator, for resentment ties energy, and tied energy cannot circulate. Thus, in Shinn's worldview, the reason money doesn't stay with certain people is not that they are cursed, unlucky, or doomed, but that they are misaligned with spiritual law, enslaved by subconscious beliefs of lack, or emotionally attached to stories that repel supply. And the remedy is to rewrite those inner laws, affirm divine supply, bless circulation, trust intuition, release resentment, establish order, and treat money as a divine idea that flows through purpose, integrity, joy, and faith rather than through force, fear, or desperation. And when one does this, money stops behaving like a fleeing bird and instead becomes like a loyal servant that dwells, multiplies, and circulates as a reflection of inner prosperity rather than outer struggle. Shinn also noted that money does not remain with those who attempt to manifest wealth while simultaneously speaking words of defeat, for the subconscious takes commands literally, and to say, "I can't keep money, it always disappears," or "I'm not good with finances," is to script reality with precision. So no matter how hard a person works, no matter how many income streams they create, the spiritual law will obey the deeper instruction, for Shinn taught that the spoken word is a wand, shaping invisible substance into visible form, and if the wand is used to carve lack, lack appears. Moreover, she believed that money is often driven away by fear-based giving or fear-based spending, meaning that when someone gives out of obligation, pressure, or guilt, rather than joy or divine guidance, they create energetic resentment, and money flees resentment, just as it flees panic spending, where one buys things to soothe anxiety, gain validation, or escape emptiness, because such acts are spiritually out of order, and order is the container for supply. Shinn emphasized that divine supply responds to faith, clarity, and right intention, not to emotional turbulence, confusion, or unconscious patterns, and so people whose finances are driven by unresolved wounds, like childhood scarcity, parental shame, cultural programming, or religious guilt, often find money does not stay, for their subconscious is at war with abundance, believing it is unsafe, sinful, selfish, or disruptive, and until those beliefs are dissolved through truth, affirmation, and alignment, money cannot settle. Shinn gave many examples of individuals who received surprising sums only to lose them instantly because they felt unworthy, anxious, or ashamed, proving that wealth is not kept by opportunity but consciousness. And she often quoted, "No man can take what is not his by divine right," meaning that money enters a life without spiritual permission through dishonesty, manipulation, fear, or ego. It will exit through loss, fines, betrayal, or misfortune, for divine law ensures that what is not aligned dissolves. Another key insight is that money does not remain with those who live in chronic indecision, for indecision is a form of resistance, and resistance blocks supply, so people who refuse to choose, procrastinate their purpose, or delay their calling create stagnation, and stagnation is anti-prosperity. Thus, money slips through their life not because they lack talent, but because the law cannot bless hesitation. Shinn also taught that money flees those who refuse right work, for prosperity is tied tied to purpose, and when someone earns money through work that violates their spirit, jobs that drain them, clients that abuse them, environments that corrupt them, they take in money with spiritual friction, and friction dissolves supply, so the money they earn leaks out through exhaustion, illness, and chaos. Similarly, money avoids those who do not rest, for rest is faith and overwork is fear, and fear blocks circulation. Shinn argued that many people lose money because they refuse to charge correctly for their work, believing it is spiritual to undercharge or noble to suffer. But undercharging creates resentment, resentment creates friction, and friction repels supply. So Shinn encouraged fair exchange, knowing that divine law supports balanced transaction. Another reason money won't stay is that some people try to protect it through fear instead of divine wisdom, leading them to lock it away, hoard it, or become miserly. But miserliness breaks circulation, and circulation is required for multiplication. So a miser may accumulate but cannot prosper, for prospering is not accumulation but circulation plus multiplication under